Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We're so excited to have this many people on the line, current clients and new. So thank you for joining us. Before we begin, just a couple of notes about today's webinar. One, everyone's muted. So please chat your questions into us. So we'll get through the presentation, and at the end, we'll have a Q&A. Second, if we miss your question, and that's likely to happen, there's already some questions coming in, we will follow up in an email with a captioned recording of the webinar as well as a Q&A written out. I always find it helpful, regardless, to have a written version, so that might work out well. Okay, so moving ahead, and there may be a slight lag in your computers. I hope you're all seeing the first screen. So today's topics, we're going to be talking about quite a few things. This is just a high level. I'm going to introduce Kara and myself. We'll be talking about accessibility language, roles and responsibilities, policy and buy-in, and web compliance in general. So who am I? Well, I am Nicole Flynn, and I have worked with CIELO 24 since early 2013. Quickly, CIELO 24 was actually started over a conversation that our founder had with a professor here at University of California, Santa Barbara about lecture capture and some features that he wanted to see and have readily available to him. I joined the company because I feel passionate about web accessibility, as well as where web accessibility is blending with media technology or video technology, audio as well. And CIELO 24 is doing a great deal in that direction. Today we'll be focusing on captions at the very end. So with that, obviously, I think everyone on this webinar understands the pressures that we're all facing with accessibility. So obviously there are FCC mandates, lawsuits that have come up, quite popular lawsuits, I might add, budget constraints. I don't think I've ever met anyone that says I have an excess budget. Perhaps they exist, and I don't know. We should talk. Decentralization across any institutional organization, trying to roll out accessibility or any other program, and control. So that leads us to Kara Zirkle. Kara is the IT Accessibility Coordinator at George Mason University. We came across Kara's profile and we're really impressed by her. We think you will be too. Kara's actually, I'm sure all of you are aware of the laws. She specializes in IT accessibility, faculty, staff, students, public, you name it. Especially interesting is her life cycle design take on rolling out accessibility programs. Also, planning, policy, documentation, and perhaps maybe even the most important is motivation and championing. Countless times I speak with our partners and they get their captioning program up and they're rolling it out across their campus, and all of a sudden motivation dies down. And so this is really important, and we want to make sure that we hit on that today. So welcome, Kara. I will turn the presentation over to you for now.
All right, thank you, Nicole. Hello, everyone, and I hope that we'll be able to get through any and all questions you might have. If not, by all means, I'm always open for emails and other conversations after the fact. But we're talking about accessibility, so it's really just another piece to the puzzle. Everybody has their puzzles that they kind of work within their offices, whether you're IT or provost or disability services or wherever you might be. So let's go to Building an Accessibility Initiative, the next slide. Within this, we're going to look at the next slide, and what are we looking for? What are some of the pieces of that puzzle? First and foremost, I have learned over my many years of, if you're really going to be a unicorn, if you will, because that's what the accessibility folks are commonly called, because we exist. We try to push ourselves out for everybody to see us, but no one really kind of sees us, and if they do see us, they don't want to see us sometimes. But with that said, we really have to understand the business cases. So if I'm trying to understand what the faculty member is needing to do in regard to making their course accessible, I'm having to understand their entire business case, what they're doing to create their modules, what they're doing as uploading their documents, their videos, whatever else it might be, and looking at that to ensure I can help build in accessibility rather than just give it as an extra piece of work to do. Really meeting regularly with your key players and working on projects. This can be done through committees. It's always best to go ahead and find the committees that are already on your campus and try to get implemented into those already, so that way you're not having to recreate the wheel. Easy to use documentation. We definitely don't recreate the wheel here because there's enough of us out there that are trying to work on accessibility. One of the things we've done is actually work with the Goals Project. We've used a lot of their fact sheets, one-page fact sheets, and we've created some of our own to add to that. And on our api.gmu.edu website, on the very far right side, we actually have a guidebook on creating accessible material, and they're all made out of 1- or 2-page fact sheets on how to do whatever specific area you're looking at. So those are what we kind of consider those easy to create or easy to use documentation. Building testing into the processes. That's going to be one of the things that I talk about and how that can be done. It kind of goes back to your business case and understanding the requirements of the projects, who's going to be your key players, and what those roles and responsibilities are. Last but not least, that support to key players, really kind of overall working with the progress and the project itself. Within our office here at George Mason, our Assistive Technology Initiative is actually held under our Compliance, Diversity, and Ethics Office. We're completely separate of information technology, and we're completely separate of our disability services. So it puts us in a very unique position that allows us to really work with all of those key players in those other departments that I've mentioned and still be able to support them as needed. So going to the next slide. Working together. So the other thing too is when you're working with someone and trying to build in accessibility, the word itself has actually become more of a stigma, very similar to what we had to deal with in regard to disabilities just a few years back. And when people hear accessibility, they're like, oh, I can't do it. I can't add one more thing to my plate. Can you do it for me? Along those lines. Or even working with vendors sometimes within the procurement aspect. A lot of folks will say, can't do accessibility, can't build it in, it's not a priority right now. So we've actually started to look at it in regard to what other wording can we use to help individuals within their certain areas, whether it's that business case or need, be able to accept accessibility, but under a term or language in which they're commonly using. Mobile design, the guidelines overlap about 75%. So really talking to someone about, hey, faculty members, you want your classes to be able to be designed in a way that everybody can use their mobile devices. It's bring your own device all the time. SEO, your search engine, just the optimization alone will help build and pull in information for your searching. Universal design, everybody's heard universal design at this point, but have they really truly understood what it can do? And it's not just universal design for learning for the students, but it's also looking at it as it's also universal design for the faculty in regard to giving them multiple options of ways they can include accessibility. So we're kind of looking at this from multiple perspectives. And then finally, English as a second language is huge because you also have your non-traditional students. You have folks coming back to school that are veterans and they're having to, learn the civilian lifestyle again, and everything else. So really looking at different wording that you can use to build a bridge, basically, from that accessibility will really move and help things move forward. So if we go to the next slide. Your roles and responsibilities. So it's never just one person's job. I know that if I would ask for a raise of hands, we'd probably say 80% of you will say, yeah, accessibility, that has to land on me. You may have been an IT person that knew about accessibility, that happened to mention it, and it's got thrown to you. Or you might be the person in the disability office that works with AT, and you've mentioned something about the accessibility of an application, and you're now the person to go to. That's common, but it's not just your job to ensure accessibility. So we look at the support of what we can do within the roles and responsibilities. So this is where you really can work with those different committees and things like that in regard to looking at your upper management, trying to define things through policy, different procedures, getting a group together that hold these important titles to help basically provide an accessibility plan of support for the entire university, so it's really not just you. You also have your hands-on individuals, such as your developers and content managers. So how many times have we seen, if you are one of those web developers or content managers, how many times have we seen, okay, here, Bob, here's an electronic version of this annual report from 2015. We need it put on the website. Oh, by the way, I need you to make that accessible. Well, you didn't design the 2015 annual report, so it's really not your position to make that accessible. We're going back and actually looking at the people designing those documents and asking and working with them to teach them to make those accessible. So that way it is a different series of positions based upon who you are and what you're doing to help include the accessibility for everyone. So if we go to the next slide, it really is breaking down the information. So it's always helpful regardless of what your position is and what you're doing. So going to the next slide, on our website on ati.gmu.edu, we have under web accessibility a roles and responsibilities. I've really tried to break this down in an area that I've seen or I've worked with in the past here at Mason. We've seen the research and academic faculty. A lot of people don't necessarily think about research as a first and foremost kind of upcoming in regard to accessibility, and we're actually starting to see those are actually some of the applications that might start being used on your campuses because the research is being done there at your university, the application is being developed there at the university. Why not push it out to the university? So looking at it within that aspect as well. The web developers and content managers, they sometimes go one and the same, but what happens when you have an academic faculty member who is creating a learning management module and you're uploading your documents or you're uploading your videos? So sometimes you have those WYSIWYG or what you see is what you get type applications that are sometimes overlapping with some of the things that we look for or see under content managers. So even though we've tried to break things down under your roles and responsibilities, you can see sometimes you have to mesh and overlap to see exactly what you might need to do or where accessibility falls in based upon all the different hats that you might be wearing. So going to the next page. Okay, try to envision a high impact arrow going up, low impact going down, low effort to your left, and high effort to your right. And within that regard, we're always going to look at the higher the impact, the higher the priority. But the lower the effort, the higher impact that it takes for an easy win. We always want to look for easy wins along the way. And that can be something as simple as an easy training webinar within the university setting or something. I mean, take this webinar, for example. It's a low effort to advertise it to the individuals within your office, some of the higher ups, but it could have a high impact because the information is coming from someone outside of your own university. I also find sometimes that we accessibility people talk about accessibility so much that it's just one of those of, oh, that's just what Kara said, or oh, that's just coming from the ATI office. If someone else hears it from outside of our office, it's like, oh, wait a minute, I've heard that before. So even something as simple as this webinar is a high impact but very low effort. So look at some of your easy wins and what could be actually used across your campus or corporate setting or government, whatever it might be, to see where you can put in the least amount of effort but get a high impact. Sometimes that might even be on Disability Awareness Month, having an event or a day training or even like an information booth or something that doesn't take a huge effort, but does have a high impact. So those are really the ones that we're looking for. So if you go to the next slide, So your areas of accessibility. You have training and awareness, policy and procurement, websites and applications. But the biggest thing to take away from this is they all overlap. You can't have just one, regardless of wherever you're working in. So if we go to the next slide, one of the things I always try to do is I like to try to see who else is doing exemplary efforts within accessibility in higher education. Under web compliance, NC State has had a Global Accessibility Awareness Day, and they've had a website challenge. That website challenge within their day alone has allowed thousands, hundreds of thousands of changes to be made on the websites on a regular basis, and you see departments actually competing against one another, so that only allows the websites to start to get better. Under policy, there's actually an example policies in higher education. Washington Do It has a website there that they actually highlight various different schools. Under procurement, I myself have worked within our Architecture Standards Review Board. It started as an Architecture Standards Committee, and I've been working in it for about 7 years now, to where we have a pretty extensive procurement aspect, where we do look at accessibility prior to the purchase of any applications, even if they're free of cost. We also look at the training and awareness. We saw that Wisconsin-Madison actually had a Web Accessibility 101 class. So again, going through and looking at some of these examples, not having to recreate the wheel, what you're really looking for and what everybody needs is buy-in. So could you be the next example of that? Where are you coming from? How are you getting that buy-in of that top-down trickle approach to have these high impacts, to break down these roles and responsibilities, to build in this policy and procurement? It's definitely one of those areas that it's not just a top-down approach. It's always good to work in the weeds as well, so that way it grows up and you'll eventually meet in the middle. So don't think that it's a helpless cause to be able to only work, in the weeds, or only try to attack the buy-in from your top-down approach. It will eventually meet. It's a candle burning at both ends. So if we look at the next slide, we have web compliance. Next slide, please. So areas of your web compliance, you have the websites themselves, but it's really unwebbing the web. It's what all falls within web accessibility. So we have the websites themselves. It's the content, the documents, the videos, the applications. We so many times see an application that has a tacked on university address of gmu.edu, but what it really is it's not a website at all for Mason owned. It's an actual third-party application that then has a look and feel of the university. And then finally, e-learning. So if you're looking at something along these lines, then you're looking at the websites of, are the videos captioned? Are the documents that are uploaded accessible? Are there multiple versions of those documents if they need to be? The content information, is it accessible? The design of the websites. A lot of people are using content management systems, CMSs. So what's the accessibility built in of those CMSs to help with the developers that could cut down multiple errors that could be found across the board? There's a lot of different things that you can see within web accessibility. If you go to the next slide, please. One of the things I like to look at is policy. So if you could answer yes to any of these questions of, do you sign off on policy? Do you help write policy? What are the current policies that apply to you? If you know of any of these things, these are good questions to ask, especially when you're talking to those higher ups of, it's a very simple question. Can they answer yes to anything? If so, maybe those are going to be some of your key players, those key stakeholders that you might be able to pull in and work as a committee for accessibility overall. Next slide. So same thing with procurement. Asking the questions of, do you sign off? Do you make suggestions? Do you participate in an RFP or contract meetings? Is there any language anywhere to be found in regard to accessibility for the procurement aspect? It's a great place to start, but before you start there, you always have to have a policy to fall back on. So these are just some of the things, again, you can ask when you're working with some of those higher ups to kind of get a good feel of where you need to go or who you need to pull in as those key stakeholders. Next slide. So the training and awareness. One of the things that I've seen over the past is it's not just trying to find different wording to explain accessibility, to get that buy-in and to be able to talk to the individuals based upon the environments in which they're in, but it's also, what does accessibility mean to you? If you'd ask this in your office setting, how many different answers would you get? We definitely need to have a knowledge that's shareable, but we also need to have a better understanding overall of what that is, because I can't tell you how many times I've heard, oh, yes, it's accessible, it's available on the web, it's accessible to everyone. Well, okay, that technically is one of the many definitions of accessibility, but it's not the one we're really trying to focus on here. So even looking at that and asking that question to make sure everybody is on the same page is a huge aspect, and just kind of getting people to basically funnel into that accessibility that you're working on. So next slide. So finally, the buy-in. Looking at all the things that we've talked about, looking at your high-level support, we are going to be looking at the communication, which can go back and forth to the questions we've asked within the policy and the procurement. The consistent language is going back to the training and awareness of asking, what does accessibility mean to you? And then overall, the accessibility support, which is really your roles and responsibilities, how you can build that accessibility in, and how it can kind of trickle down from there. And building all of this in and pulling that into that high-level support to see how it could apply to them, then you're now starting to get that as an overarching area to where you can then start to see that it is going to be something that eventually can be the roles and responsibilities in regard to working together to pull that business case and that requirement into the different projects. But the projects could also be broken down to different academic units or different offices or whatever else it might be. Just use that same aspect and put it into the perspective that you're in or the environment that you're in. So really, I've broken the accessibility stuff down pretty quickly. This is all things that can help the institutions leverage the accessibility across the campus. If you do have any questions for me, by all means, like I said, at the end, we'll be taking questions, and you can always follow up with me during email. So I'll hand it back over to Nicole.
Thank you, Kara. A wealth of information, as usual. So just to kind of carry on a bit here onto what Kara is talking about, how we're looking to support your accessibility efforts across your campus. In some detail here. First, any captioning provider you're going to work with, for the most part, I'm assuming, is integrated automatically. I think this is important. It erases some of the barriers that I think captioning on video, for instance, is daunting. So integration is imperative. As well, we've worked really closely with our university partners to kind of add in some features that are unique to educators. So creating this master university account with department sub-accounts, we've really created a flexible system here. Every university is different. We work with hundreds, and they're all a little bit different. So we really will go out of our way and do go out of our way to make sure that rolling out these programs on our end from a captioning standpoint is as easy as possible. To that end, and I think Kara touched on this earlier, moderation, control, who purchases versus who approves, perhaps who's up-leveling captioning of videos, audio, all of this is available, and hopefully it eases some of the strain on rolling out accessibility programs. And finally, and kind of near and dear to my heart, as I've been a champion for it, are these custom portals that we've created for our partners that allow universities to really roll out more seamlessly their captioning programs. So here's an example of one. This is a generic picture, of course. So what we do is we provide a landing page or a portal, if you will, and universities can customize this however they'd like. What's really interesting is we have a couple of universities that actually promote each other's accessibility information, which I think is really nice and symbolic of what this whole webinar is about. You know, we're having this dialogue to help each other address some serious concerns. As well, these pages are really functional. You can see, and I just put some examples down here of Kaltura, Echo 360, CLO 24. These are just step-by-step instructions. So when someone does make it to this page, maybe they see your policies, procedures, but they also know step-by-step what it takes to upload captioning. So with that, we are going to do some Q&A. And I'm just going to start off by saying the most popular question I have gotten, well, two of them really. One is, are we going to be sending out a captioned recording of this webinar? And we are. I will also break up the webinar into smaller bite-sized snippets according to topic, and those will be captioned. Sometimes it's easier to just go straight to the topic that you're most interested in than watching an entire webinar through. And then the second most common question was, Kara had a slide and it had a lot of links on it. I think she had 2 slides with links. And people wanted to have those links available. And yes, I will definitely make sure that we send out, copies of those links, and we'll send out the presentation to you so you have all of that information. So with that, let's take a couple of other questions. So the first question is, success with multi-department and function meetings. I guess this is across campus.
We have now granted, keep in mind this has been years progress, so it's not anything overnight. But we started with an IT accessibility committee to where we ourselves actually tried to find some of those key stakeholders that were across all the different units and had them within our committee. And that then allowed us to help create some documentation, update our policy and things like that. Since then, we've now moved to a further direction, almost like a 2.0 or step 2, that we do have an accessibility liaison within every academic unit. So a dean or director, a higher level institute or a higher level individual for each academic area, and those are the individuals we can go to if we do ever run into hiccups within those areas there. We are now starting to move to your step 3 of trying to find your non-academic, so more of your administrative units, and try to find some liaisons there. We've started with the library, and we do have one liaison within the library that we work specifically with, but that also kind of corresponds with some of their video databases and things due to some of the captioning that we've done as well, that we send out with the captioning for those. So it's not a quick and easy question, but we've done a lot of it within that aspect.
Thank you. You did make that sound easy, though, so good answer. Okay, the next question for you as well. Was policy created from scratch, or did you go about clipping aspects of rulings from the DOJ to create your captioning accessibility policy?
We created it from scratch. For the original policy, I can't comment on that one. So background that probably is meaningless to a lot of folks, but George Mason University is a level 2 for our state, Commonwealth of Virginia. And a level 2 is basically saying we don't have to follow the VITA, the Virginia Information Technology Agency or agenda. We don't have to follow it to a T, but we do have to follow most of it. And the things that we don't have to follow, we have to have policy of our own to state that we'll follow their stuff, but this is also what Mason is going to follow. And then level 3s, they can pretty much do most of what they want because they have all of their own policies in play. So in order for us to have been a level 2, we had to have an IT accessibility policy in place as a requirement to meet that level 2 need. So that was actually signed by our CIO of the Information Technology Unit about a month prior to my actual starting of my brand new position to the university of an IT accessibility coordinator. So what was taken there, and that was done in 2007. So prior to any DOJ or anything. So I'm going to take most of that was probably from scratch for the individual that had created some of that, because there wasn't a lot there to be reviewed before. We've since updated that. We have looked at and used the DOJ as a roadmap of ideas, but the updates in which we had made for our policy were still areas that were specific to our university. So we still created that as we needed it.
Great answer. This is another one for you, and it's long. How much of accessibility is typically or should be allowed to be pushed to user training responsibility versus building inaccessibility? For example, not conveying information by links or color alone.
It's a great question. It's definitely a gray area, and that also kind of ties into a little bit of going back to that individual and asking them, how much support do they have? If you do have support and you can push that to the author of the document or the website or the developer in which the job description would typically have some kind of accessibility knowledge built into that, then it should go back to that area. We do train our web developers and content managers about web accessibility, so we do look to them to make those changes. We don't make those changes. If you're looking at something from a faculty perspective, that's a little bit of a different answer, and that's also a different animal, because in order to support faculty for the need that they have is difficult for any office, for anything, whether it's accessibility or not. And to ensure that they have the support they need to also include the accessibility that we need is always going to be a cooperation effort to try to find, and that's something that would be very specific to the individual units. But I'd always be happy to follow up in more detail about what we've done here.
Excellent. Another question, do you have, Kara, do you have any current measures or way in which you measure progress towards accessibility, awareness, implementation across campus?
We do have a few different ways. So we keep various different databases. Our databases break down our websites of a priority 1 and priority 2 listing. Our priority 1 would be anything that would be public. Something someone would be looking at if they were wanting to become a student or an employee, or someone just wanting to get information in general. And a priority 2 would be more of your academic settings and information of your schools and departments of once you're here when you're looking for information. And we do keep our quarterly information of the accessibility percentages of their sites. So that's one way of which we keep it for our web. If you're looking at it from a training perspective, or if you're looking at it from anything video and captioning, or either that or document accessibility, we also keep databases to where we can see every year or by a semester basis how much increase we've had in requests of captioning, because we do provide captioning for free for anyone at the university, whether it be for accommodations, for compliance, and that compliance goes both for websites as well as distance education courses, and etc. So we do keep information on that, and our numbers constantly increase, which having information like that will eventually allow us to then go back and say, we do need an increased budget because we are supporting X, Y, Z, and this is the numbers that have increased. So we do have some information like that we do keep.
And actually, this is an interesting comment. I am starting to spread the use of the term inclusive design on campus, and I think that the term inclusive really resonates now on campuses. I think, Kara, this touches on your verbiage and terms to approach accessibility, to get more acceptance, buy-in, and follow.
Absolutely, inclusive design is a great new way of saying universal design. Universal design had been used so much for so long now, it is starting to push to the sidelines. So inclusive design is a great new way of being able to push that out and try to get the acceptance of accessibility built in, because people can actually see it in a different limelight. It's not just for disabilities, it's full-out inclusion, and that's really what we're all trying to reach for.
Agree. I like that term, inclusive. Okay, what is a good resource to help me determine if my institution's websites are accessible?
That is no easy answer. If there is money in the budget, there are multiple third-party companies that provide web testing. Whether they do it, you can have an application in which you do an automated testing of your own, such as what we have, or you can actually have them run the test and them write the reports as well. For those, many of us who don't have budget, or for those trying to start out who don't have budget that need to prove for budget, a lot of times that would be best with a student worker or someone coming in and really using your free automated tools, testing tools, of whether that be WebAIM, Wave. There's a couple good plugins through both Chrome and Firefox. OpenWax is another one that is a plugin that's on the that's on the browser itself, that you can just test that one page. But there's a lot of them out there that you can use, and that's really about the best way to kind of get started, to give you an overall idea, because there's no one quick answer for that.
Great. This question came in a few times, actually. Kara, how do you determine the high impact areas of accessibility to attend to?
High impact areas would be the most it can reach. The larger the number, it can reach out to individuals, or the higher of the importance of the topic. So a high impact would be, in regard to if we would focus purely on the provost office, because the provost would have anything academic related. It would be a very small, narrow view, working specifically within the provost, but by putting the effort into that and seeing if the provost himself would be willing to write a letter about that inclusive design and how how that is being supported and that being sent out. It's not as much work as what the office or individual themselves would be doing. It's more of a request and hopeful support of that, but the impact would be so high because it would be coming from a provost and would be a letter of support. Another area is looking at it from a perspective of having a webinar. I know we try to do a couple webinars ourselves here at Mason, and we push that out as free webinars of just topic information that might be a hot topic at that time. And we just allow it to be open for anyone, both Mason and non-Mason, to attend. And aside from that, we also do face-to-face monthly trainings on different topics. So 1 hour training, it's not a lot of time and effort on my end, but we're getting 25 plus people in the room every time. So therefore, that's becoming a high impact because we're doing it every month. We're getting higher in numbers. So you can actually have a high impact for various different ways.
Great. We have a few more questions, and we're running out of time. So like I said, we will get those answered and emailed out to everyone. They're great questions. Thank you. As well, before we leave, Kara's contact information is provided for you. It will be in the presentation and the follow-up, as well as my information for anyone who's considering captioning. Just send me a video, and I'm more than happy to make sure that gets captioned for you, and perhaps you're interested in a university portal page. And for our current partners that are on this call, because I noticed quite a few of you, go ahead and send me a video. It's on us. Thank you, everyone, for attending and the dialogue. It's really important to have. We hope to continue to have them, and happy to work with all of you today. Kara, special thanks to you for a wonderful presentation.
No problem. Happy to do so. We will also post the PowerPoint that I have, as well as the archived video that's captioned on our website as well. So that way people will also be able to link to some of the things that I've referenced within the PowerPoint.
Thank you. All right. With that, everyone have a fantastic day.